Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Business Fun Podcast. I am your host, Dave Wakeman. Today's episode is brought to you by my friends at Booking Protect, the global leaders in refund protection. Any listing, any sector, anywhere, Booking Protect has you covered with the world's most comprehensive refund protection product. To find out how you and your organization can work with Booking Protect to deliver a better buying experience, more peace of mind in your customer's purchase, and how you and your organization can create a brand new stream of revenue, visit www.bookingprotect.com. Once again, that's www.bookingprotect.com, the global leaders in refund protection. While I have your attention, I want to remind you, you can also find my ebook. It is 101 ways to market, sell, and monetize your live event. You can get that simply by emailing me. It's my name, Dave, at davewakeman.com. Put revenue in the subject line, and I'll get that out to you. My guest today is a good friend of mine, Guislaine Bulman from Ticketpro in Canada. And I wanted to have Guislaine on because why not? But mostly I wanted to have her on to talk about data and big data and a lot of the things that go around data. She has a very interesting take on data because Ticketpro is a Canadian company that's been around for quite a bit of time, and they have had the opportunity to collect data, understand how to utilize it, and how to make it actionable, which is sort of the holy grail of data. So we talk about data. We talk about using technology to create opportunities and take advantage of them. We talked about using the proper technologies and the right data to improve the customer buying process. We talked about outreach to younger fans. We talked about content. We talked about pricing. We even got into a conversation about baseball, softball, blockchain, everything, I think. We got to a great deal, and Guislaine is great. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Guislaine Bulman. I'm very excited to introduce everybody to my friend Guislaine Bulman from Ticketpro.
Yep.
I'm so excited to have you on today. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Ooh, fine, just fine. I'm great. Actually, I'm having like a really good day. I've laughed a lot, and it was mostly your fault because we were talking before we started recording. But I wanted to, I'm really excited to have you on because I think you have some really great ideas that people will learn from. We've become friends over the last couple of years through INTIX, and you're like one of the smartest people I know, and you have a like one of the best outlooks about life and tickets and everything that I think people will benefit from. So thank you for doing this. I want to start out by asking you a question about, I guess where we started out talking before we started recording this about the state of the industry, right? And one of the things you and I both are very, very avid promoters of is sharing ideas widely and as completely as possible. Right, wherever I can gain an idea from, I like to throw it out there and go, well, this could work. It might not work. It could work. And we talked about that many times before about sharing ideas and kind of like having a holistic approach to tickets. Can you tell me how you came to such an open and creative way of approaching ideas, and how you actually, make sure that you're bringing ideas into your business every day?
Well, I think that as we discussed earlier, for a long time we were very insular in ticketing, and I don't know if that's just in Canada or in the States as well, but it was kind of exclusive. People were doing everything by themselves, and you can't be an expert at everything. And I started going to INTIX about 10 years ago, and I thought that was a really exciting place to go. People were at that industry, people were very open, they were very excited. We shared a lot of ideas, and you can only learn, you can only improve your business and improve how you work when you listen to other people, because you're not an expert. Nobody's an expert at everything. So I think that it's important to bring other people in, bring other ideas in, and mix them up with your own. Try new things.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great way of approaching it. I know that, what's today? We're recording this on February 27th. So I know on Friday of last week, I had been I had people ask me like, well, you have all these like great marketing ideas. And I was like, I'm only really as smart as the people I learn from. Right. And so I posted some stuff from like all these marketing people from all over the world. And it was really great because then I got emails from like all these people who are heroes to me that I've learned from. They're like, oh my God, it's like so generous of you to share my ideas with all the people that you work with. And it's great. And I guess the way that you put it that I find so valuable is that you don't lose anything by sharing an idea or learning an idea or taking an idea from another place and applying it in the situation you're currently in. Because the idea, if you don't put any action behind it or you don't like lovingly steal an idea from another place, it loses this energy.
Yeah, I'm going to use that now, the lovingly steal.
You should. That's why we're having, that's why we have these conversations. That way the ideas that you and I can, share with people, they can lovingly steal and use on their own.
Yeah, but nothing's new. Everything is always inspired, quote unquote, by something else.
Well, that's right. I have a guy who I've learned a lot from, a guy called Alan Weiss, and he says there's nothing new under the sun, and which I know is, again, a quote that has probably been stolen lovingly from many different places. And it's, it's really true. And I think that there's a lot of great ideas out in the world of tickets that we often miss because we're only looking at what other people in our industry are doing or other people in our specific area of tickets are doing. Or, maybe we're afraid to take an idea from a vendor because a vendor might try to sell me something.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily, if you're a vendor or if you're anybody involved, your goal should be that, like, I want to elevate the industry and make it grow, because if I do, then there's going to be more opportunity for everybody, including me.
Yes.
I mean, at least that's my point of view, but, your mileage may vary.
Well, and also sometimes, one company will lead the charge with an idea and show that it can be done and how to do it well, and then for another idea, it'll be another company, but we're always inspired by the people. Like, somebody's always got to be the one to do it first, but it doesn't always have to be the same people.
Yeah, and I think usually it isn't the same people. I mean, there's an incredible world full of ideas that get expressed, right? Like if they bounce off of somebody, then they interact with that idea in an entirely different way than you or me.
Yeah.
And then when that idea takes on its next life, it's the same idea, but it's entirely new because it's never been used in this place or shape before.
Yes. Yeah.
And and that's like, it's interesting because when you think about it in terms of opportunities, right? Which is, kind of how I've been trying to phrase things most of the year. I've kind of tried to go back old school and focus on revenue and focus on helping people see and understand and take advantage of opportunities. Not having the right mindset though about opportunities, it seems like a missed opportunity for growth. Knowing that, like, you have a really great viewpoint on data and on opportunities. Where are people missing or should be looking at opportunities, or where are they missing some opportunities to grow their business and reach new markets?
I think there are a lot of different ways that people can grow, and missing an opportunity often we do not have. In the arts, or a lot of smaller organizations don't have the manpower to be able to optimize all their opportunities. But I think that one of them that we're starting to now, and I know this is like a topic that's been beaten to death, but dynamic pricing is one that we all do. And I think people are starting to do it more seriously now. And I like the idea of trying to be more like the airline industry, where we're starting to get people used to the idea that prices will change depending on demand. But I also think that I'm not sure that people are actually looking at pricing. I don't think they're specialists the way they should be. I don't think they necessarily give the attention to that. I think for the last couple of years, big data has been a buzzword. It's been a keyword, and people didn't necessarily know what that meant, but we started collecting data. And Ticketpro, we've been around for a long time. We've been around for like 15 years. We have a network, so we have a lot of data like in our database that's just kind of sitting there. So we're trying to look at that now and help the organizations that work with us look at trends over short-term, over long-term periods, over, for their festival, to just kind of look at how pricing has traditionally been done and where there's room to grow in that. So I know that dynamic pricing has been beaten to death. It's not like a super sexy idea, but I think that is somewhere where organizations, they say, well, I can't raise the price. It's been this price for several years. But if you look at the data and if you look at what your sales have been doing for the past 10 years, or look at what the industry's been doing for the past 10 years, there is room to grow that. And it doesn't mean, increasing it $5 across the board. No, but look at when you're selling, what you're selling, who you're selling to, when, and you put all those elements together. And I think it's a really good idea to just kind of question how you've been doing that historically.
Yeah, no, I know that big data and dynamic pricing are two terms that have moved beyond buzzwords into sort of established concepts that I think people talk about, don't necessarily understand, or don't know how to turn into action. The way you just describe dynamic pricing as a way to let's look at 15 years worth of data and let's look at the trends to help price smarter. That's a good way of understanding how to use data, right? What are some other examples you have, from what you've worked on over the years, that would show how you actually can make big data operational, how you can make it actually useful for people? Because I struggle with this idea of big data, because what I see, and I could be wrong, right? If I am, people let me know, that people get so overwhelmed by all the data they have access to that it becomes like, we know we need to collect it, we know we need to have it, but when we don't know what to do with it, and then it becomes like sort of a drag on the organization because they don't know exactly how to take action on it.
Yeah, well, big data can, big data. Big data is just data, right? It's just that you have a lot of it, and then you can kind of anonymize it. And
it's really big.
Exactly. It's enormous data. We have great, giant data. Big data is when you have enough that you can look at trends, where you anonymize things. So we're kind of going in two separate directions, separate but equally important directions in the industry, because we want to know you, Dave. What do you do, and how can we sell you more tickets, or what will interest you? So we were interested in very much you, Dave, as a person, as an individual. Who are you? How old are you? Where do you live? What's your income? So for marketing, we really want to do that specific marketing. But the big data is kind of, you have so much data that you can look at it and see trends and see, make, I want to say, easy assumptions, but some clear assumptions as to what trends are. And when you have a lot of data and you say 40% of people, when they purchase tickets on your website, come directly to the page, but 60% of people are being redirected from somewhere else, that gives you an idea on how you can act. So I think big data is really useful for obviously marketing purposes. It's really interesting when you talk about when you look at digital marketing, which is I think another opportunity that organizations, some have embraced it and some small organizations have embraced it. And I think this sounds counterintuitive, but I think if you do not have a big budget to do that in-house, you need to have that in-house. That whole department, I think that it's a good idea to look at opportunities elsewhere, to look at third-party specialists who can come in and help you. A lot of times, those specialists can work out some sort of package where you're paid according to sales that they help generate. So that's a win right there. And these specialists have, oftentimes, Dave, you and I know that at the box office, big organizations is different, but smaller organizations, the box office manager needs to do everything and can't. And they run out of time, and they have to do what's urgent, but not necessarily what's important. And so just if you have a third party organization that can help you with your digital marketing, if you want to do a Facebook campaign even, that data, that it can be really useful to you.
Yeah, one concern I have, and maybe you have a different approach on this than I do, is you talked about large data sets, which creates this big pool of anonymous data that can help show us a path, or trends over time. One of the things, and this comes back to the idea that we're stealing ideas from everywhere, right? Which is kind of my gig, right? Because I really have one specialty, which is how to bring money into businesses, how to sell and market things. But so with these big, large data sets, right, and the anonymous data, my kind of concern, and you use the word assumption here, was are we using that stuff too heavily, though? Because are we making it so that it becomes like a race to the bottom, or really a race to the middle, or the lowest common denominator? And so number one, is that true? And if so, how do we stop that bias from happening? Because it seems that we create an environment where no one's happy if that's what we're doing.
Well, okay, and I've listened to your podcast before, so I assumed this was going to come up.
I do have my other famous question I'll pull out in a minute. So.
No, and that's a very good point. And I think when you look at it, like, it's very easy to sit here and in 10 minutes talk about big data and wrap that up. But clearly, when you look at it, you can't you can't make assumptions. I'm saying sometimes things are clear. So if you look at data and you go like, wow, 80% of our ticket buyers are women, that's not an assumption. That's the fact of what's happening. But why is that happening? There you can't assume. So just as an example, we were looking with some clients at the flow of purchases on our website. And our client said this was, if you look, people drop out at the page where we list the prices. People that's where they exit the flow. So it means our prices are too high. And I said, well, I'm not sure that's true, because people are coming and maybe they want to look at the prices. This is what they want to know. And so it's a success because you've given them that information, and this is where they drop out. And then when we looked a little further, we realized that like 60% of people who had left that page actually came back and purchased later. So I think that how I read the situation was correct. People come on the website, they want to know what the price is. If they exit your website without buying because they need to consult other people, that's still a win. You've had what could be considered a conversion if conversion wasn't universally accepted to mean money. But you've reached your goal with that page.
Let me ask you this too, because you brought up something interesting too. So you said like 80% of people are dropping out, or so whatever the number was at the point of pricing, right? And then 60 people come back. You tell me if I'm wrong, but so knowing that though, that creates a tremendous opportunity, because if only 60 people are coming back, that's 40% of the people that you have a chance to like remarket and retarget to, right?
Yep, exactly. So and getting that information, I don't know if in the States you have the same laws as we do in Canada. In Canada, we've got something what's called the Canadian anti-spam legislation. So we're not allowed to email, and it was not meant for ticket sellers, but it was meant for the Nigerian prince. But of course, they cannot control the Nigerian prince, and they can control Canadian corporations. So we're not allowed to send emails to people willy-nilly and to whoever we want, and to contact them however we wish. So we really have to get their permission to either explicit or implicit to contact them by email. And they're slapping out some hefty fines, and so we really have to be careful. And at Ticketpro, everywhere, you want to talk to people who want to hear from you. You don't want to talk to people who don't want to hear from you, because you're wasting your time. And I'm generalizing, but
no, that's a great point. And that's sort of when I asked the original question about the large data sets and the race to the bottom. That's like an interesting term, because that's like you can't highlight that enough. It's like having a huge list is unimportant. Having a much smaller list of people who are willing to take the journey with you is so valuable.
Yeah. So when somebody comes and they put tickets in their cart, that's pretty that's a show of interest, right? So yeah, so like looking at abandoned carts, looking at, and I mean, making sure you're not. And I think like the cart abandonment and just talking to those people, this is fairly new. We don't have 20 years of data to back this up. So right now it's still, finding out what is the right, what's the right time period to do that. We have a challenge that Amazon does not have. So if you want to buy, like, I don't know, the Bobbsey Twins haunted house book, you put it in your cart. You abandon your cart. Amazon can say like, oh, okay, did Guislaine buy the Bobbsey Twin book? Like, 2 days later or whatever it is. And then do we still have it in stock? Here we go. Whereas as tickets, if you've got especially reserved seating, what if you don't have those tickets anymore? What if they're sold? You still want to entice the person to come back, and how do you do that? And what do you offer them instead? So we're still looking, I think, at details. But cart abandonment is like a huge opportunity that people can look at. And you've had somebody who was interested enough to come. Like, and my take on this is when I put tickets in my cart, I'm looking at the price. I want to know what I'll be paying and what is available. So oftentimes you can't just go, like, it's an easy way to do it. I'll go to a venue. I'll say I want the best tickets for this event, for this date. You click it and you get it in your cart. You see what the tickets are going to be and what the final price is going to be. And then I think about it. I go talk to people or whatever. So that is not necessarily, you did not fail. You got me to go that far. And now let's get me the rest of the way.
No, that's a tremendous, that's a great example, and I don't think we've ever talked about cart abandonment and the opportunities that creates here before, because I think it's like every point in the journey, and this is, I'm not going to be a genius when it comes to digital tools and using them for marketing in all cases, right? Because I can't be an expert in everything like you said, but every point in the process, right? That data gives you an opportunity to understand, like, well, if I'm losing people here, what's the problem, right? If I'm losing them on the homepage, well, that tells me a lot, right? It tells me that people can't find what they're looking for, or I'm not offering what they're looking for. And each step of the process, if you ask the right questions, it gives you the opportunity to learn something new, something better, and take action from it. So, and in that case, then I think that data is a very valuable tool, and and like the example you used of 80% of women are the ones, maybe in your example are purchasing the tickets. Then that tells you that that's the person you need to communicate with, right? That helps change the way you program and what you offer, right? Because if that's who the buyer is and that's who's making the purchasing decision, then that's very valuable to know. Like, you don't just throw, it keeps you from throwing stuff against the wall and hoping it sticks.
So what Ticketpro we try and do also is like marry Google Analytics with our own analytics and with our own data, because Google Analytics, a lot of people go incognito. I do, which is very ironic, because as a ticket seller, I want everybody's information, but as a consumer, I do not want to give my information to anybody. So you lose a lot of that in Google Analytics. You lose a lot of that data. But when you buy tickets, we have that data. But we don't necessarily have all the traffic, and we do not necessarily have the huge toolbox that Google does. So we can embed Google Analytics trackers into our own website. And then people, if they're looking at Google Analytics, if we haven't done like a survey, or if we don't know if your client is male or female, or who's coming to the event, you can still get a lot of that demographic information from Google. So I think that's another opportunity that people can use, is to actually, Google Analytics is a big tool, and on your own website, like on people's own websites, they can use a little bit, they can use a lot. You can fall down the rabbit hole, but there's a lot of good information that's available, and to know who your audience is. And I'm going to use this to segue into, this is not technology related at all, but a lot of people are not working on renewing their audience. And I feel like a lot of festivals, or a lot of, smaller organizations, they want to keep the subscribers they have now, or the patrons they have now, but they're not necessarily trying to renew to a younger audience. And that is vital.
Look at you. You're bringing up stuff I love to talk about. You obviously, you know me. and to highlight the point you make about the Google Analytics and all the cool stuff it'll do for you, I just pulled up my Google Analytics on for my website, and it'll go. I mean, obviously the U.S. is the number one market for me, but I mean, there's visitors I can see here from Germany, South Africa, Australia, the Philippines, India, like all over the place, and it gives me a, the percentage of these places is very high, which is interesting to know, right? I mean, it doesn't change. I guess everybody needs to know how to make more money. Is the lesson. But renewing fans, let me ask you about that, because that is a very, very good question, and something that, at least in the States, it should be at the top of people's minds. The most famous example, right, lately has been Major League Baseball, and the fact that Major League Baseball's average fan, the age of their average fan, has been ticking up 1 year every year, consistently for like the last at least 4 or 5 years, I think, and they're kind of like, they seem to be a little bit directionless in how they are tackling that idea. Let me ask you, as the person who brought up the idea, how do you tackle the idea of renewing your fan base and always kind of growing the next generation of fans?
I think there's a couple of ways to do that, and it depends on your content. So if you have, I know here in Montreal, like say for the Montreal Symphony Orchestra, which has traditionally had an older, fan base, they do a lot of outreach to younger fans. They have, they go over different social media channels. Younger fans will be, super generalizing, but they're going to be on Snapchat. They're not going to be on Facebook. They're going to be interested in Insta stories. They're not going to be interested, you might not reach them on Twitter. So just how you're talking to your fans and where you're finding your fans. But the content they'll obviously do special pricing for younger fans. They've had younger conductors come on. They try and do different even programs where they do they've had the Lord of the Rings, they've had the Harry Potter movies with a live band. So they're trying to engage, and it's working. For them, it's working. And I think, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. I don't know how I do it for Major League Baseball. Is it baseball or football, you said?
Baseball. Yes, baseball, definitely. Their average age of their fan was, the last time I saw this, I think it was 56 years old.
Yeah.
That's pretty old.
Well, here, I have no idea about baseball, so I'm just going to talk anyway. I'm like, if you're having trouble, if you do not have, we don't have baseball here in Montreal anymore, which is a shame. I love live baseball. I love going in person. Love it. And I would buy a subscription, but I'd buy season tickets, but I'm not do they have enough season tickets for their younger fans? Are they getting incentives or are they just trying to resell those season tickets to the same older fans all the time? And then you're not letting the younger people participate. I'm sure they have way better ideas than I do, but just,
I think the big idea lately has been to go with something that's like a Netflix type subscription thing.
Yep.
And that's really been about the gist of the idea, and to have really expensive stadium renovations to create social spaces. And that seems to be the extent of most of their marketing efforts that have gone into this. I could be wrong, but yeah.
Well, different subscriptions is a really good idea. So allowing people to make their own packages, that seems to be what a lot of sports organizations thinks appeals to younger people. I know in Montreal for the soccer, I think last year, I'm not sure if they're continuing it this year, but they also have kind of what do they call those? Oh dear. What's the word? Where before the game you go out and everybody's got food at their trail.
Oh, a tailgate.
Yes, tailgating. So they wanted to do this kind of tailgating idea where you would go and then you'd have different stations where you'd go eat during the game. So they're trying to bring foodies and soccer together, which I think is an excellent idea. But I mean, you offer me food anywhere, and I'm pretty much in.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think that, I mean, again, we talked about this before. I think you even saw me push back on this idea that we're limited in the ways that we can market and sell and generate revenue from events and reach people. I mean, as we're recording this, I know I just sent it to you, but I just put out a PDF with 101 ways to market and sell and monetize your events. And I know it's not an exhaustive list. It's not a comprehensive, complete list. I don't think, I think all of these things should be on the table. I mean, it's just, it's, my idea is always like you keep throwing things at the wall until you get what you hope, until you kind of start finding the keys to the combination to get what you want.
Yeah, and I worked in software development for a long time, and one of the ideas that I love that I took out of that, and then I try and apply it to everywhere in my life is fail fast. So try it, implement it quickly, do it. If it doesn't work, move on to the next thing.
That's an old idea that was the New Deal here in the States, like FDR. It's like, move fast and, everything's not going to work. And I think that's maybe one of the things that gets everybody kind of jammed up a lot, is that they feel like every idea they have has to work or they're going to be seen as a failure. And whereas I look at it like, if you're not screwing up, then you're not really trying anything.
Exactly. I used to figure skate, and the whole thing was if you're not falling, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's like we have to kind of divorce failure from the success of our job, right? It's sort of like the way I look at it, right? You know me. I'll throw out all kinds of ideas and all kinds of thoughts and suggestions. Not all of them are going to work, right? I don't expect that all of them are going to work. It's just like being comfortable with the idea that this might not work is a really valuable mindset to have when you are dealing with uncertainty, right? Which is like what we're all dealing with, right? Our audiences are changing, our markets are changing, our ability to sell and market effectively is changing. I mean, we kind of are like a constant N1 experiment, each and every one of us.
Well, I think maybe also if people are afraid of failure, they just need to reframe it as A/B testing. So we're trying this idea, this didn't work, this other idea worked better. Okay.
Look at you. That's a really great way of putting it, as an A/B test, right? I mean, that's like such an elegant way of putting it, because you're testing two ideas. One might work better than the other one, and then when you figure out which one works better, you test it against another one until you start figuring out what works, what people want, what people are willing to pay attention to, and what people are willing to invest in.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I have an ongoing email exchange that I probably should send an email to when we're done here. But there's a lady called, I forgot George's last name, but she works at the Sydney Opera House, and she's very big on fan engagement and customer engagement and the customer experience. And she told me the last time we were going back and forth was like the biggest challenge that she deals with at the Sydney Opera House, which is an iconic venue, right? I mean, everybody, as soon as I say it, I'm sure you can picture it in your head, is that as soon as they roll out something experiential for their customers, it becomes expected, and that they have to come up with something new. Yeah. And I think we all just have to keep that in mind, that as soon as we give something, it's just an expectation that we've set. And now now it's our job to just keep going further, always pushing further.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this thing. What kind of trends are you looking at over like the next 12 to 18 to 24 months that are going to impact the ability of people to market and sell tickets?
So I think when we were at INTIX, we saw a couple of workshops on blockchain, and I think everybody's kind of thinking, "Ooh, blockchain." I don't think that in the certainly not next 12 months, but even 18, I don't see that having a big impact. Eventually, yes, but I don't think that we figured out how to use it. And actually, I'm kind of betting on the fact that it's going to be used in a way nobody's expecting. But that's just my own personal thought on that. So I know it's a big buzzword right now, but I don't think that's going to have any impact in the near future. You can cut this out if I'm wrong, right?
Oh yes, of course. No, we'll go back and we can post edit it. But I tend to agree. I think that the opportunity for blockchain's there. I think that it's probably creates value. I think that the challenge blockchain companies are going to encounter is the fact that the industry as a whole is slow to adapt to new technology.
Yeah.
And the idea that it takes a lot to create a mass shift enough to make it financially feasible to continue to go forward.
Yeah. But I do think, so one of the trends that I think is going to impact soon and more is, we were talking about big data and we're talking about having that data. And so I think that probably AI is going to come into play more quickly than we think. So just AI engines and ticketing and kind of automating a lot of stuff. I think in ticketing, and especially perhaps ticketing agencies, because we have really clean data, right? We've got databases that are structured, and it's a lot easier to pull some BI out of that. I think that could make quite an impact soon. And I mean, we're doing it, I think, right now with all the automating we're doing, with all the automated marketing we're doing, with all of the, looking at cart abandonment, sending out emails automatically, all of that. We're directing that right now, and I think we're going to automate it even more.
Let me ask you this, because does Ticketpro have an AI solution or an AI component built into the platform?
I wouldn't say AI. No, not yet.
That's okay. Because I was going to say, I didn't want to say it if you were, but I would point people towards Martin Gameltoff and ActivityStream, he's been on the podcast twice.
Uh-huh.
And their solution is extremely elegant and is cost effective. And I know just from doing some work with those guys and talking with them that, it provides some really great insights that back up exactly what you were talking about.
Well, I will have to go listen to that then.
So blockchain and big data, any other trends we should be watching?
I don't know if this is going to happen, although I kind of wish it would happen. The world is kind of coming together with, we're having our last gasps of trying to stay separate, I believe. But in general, the world is coming together. We're getting smaller. We're able to talk. We're able to communicate so fast that I don't think there's any really way to keep us apart. So I think that everything that's we used to kind of really be isolated, and now we're using all of this, these third-party integrations where platforms are talking to each other, I think, in ways that they haven't before. I think Europe is further along that curve than we are probably in North America. But I think that we're starting to share inventory between platforms, and I think that's only going to get stronger. I think that's a trend that's only going to continue and get stronger, and I think we're all going to be the stronger for it, frankly.
And I would second your idea that Europe is much further advanced than we are in North America as far as using integrations and tools that talk together and work together effectively. I mean, that's I think as true as it gets. They do a much, much better job. And I think part of it's just sort of the nature of the way that the contracts between venues go in North America versus Europe. But I would agree. And I think that's true. Things are only getting smaller. It's only easier to communicate. It's only easier to work together, no matter anywhere you are in the world. And I think it's great because, I've been really fortunate to meet and know people all over the world. Because of technology and because of how small things are, and it really makes, I think, all of us smarter.
Yeah.
So that's great. Now, where can I point people to you? How can they find you? Where can they find you on the internet?
Oh, me, Guilaine?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm on. IAMGUIS on Twitter. I'm not that. I like to follow more than I like to talk. And I'm Guislaine B on Instagram. But again, I like to follow. I don't share very much.
That's when you have to pick up the phone and call Guislaine to find out exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, Guislaine, thank you so much for doing this. I think at least if nothing else, people are going to learn that you're much smarter than I am. So
I don't think so, but it'd be nice to think so.
No, I think let me pay you the compliment. So.
Well, thanks very much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll do this one. We'll do another podcast.
Yes.
Once again, I want to thank my guest, Guislaine Bulman from Ticketpro, for taking the time to have a conversation with me on the business of fun. As always, you can find out what I'm doing by visiting my website. That's www.davewakeman.com. You can find my blog, my list of clients, the activities, my calendar, all kinds of stuff there. So visit www.davewakeman.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me there. You can follow me on Twitter at David Wakeman, which, if you have a connection to the person who has at Dave Wakeman, who has not tweeted since 2014, I'd love that Twitter handle. If you like what I'm doing on the podcast, I'd love it if you'd subscribe. We're on Stitcher, we're on SoundCloud, we're on iTunes, we're on all the major platforms at this point. And if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or maybe most importantly, share the podcast with one other person. It would mean a great deal to me, and it would ensure that we continue to deliver really great content for you. As always, I want to thank my friends at Booking Protect, the global leaders in refund protection, for sponsoring the podcast. To find out how you and your organization can partner with Booking Protect to create a better buying experience, give your customers peace of mind, and maybe, most importantly, give you and your organization a brand new stream of revenue, visit them at their website, www.bookingprotect.com. And until next time, thanks for listening. I'll see you soon. Take care.